Episode of The Bitter Pill. Sorry it's been so long between episodes. I've had other things going on lately. Um, and so tonight, what I wanted to do was to talk about a couple of things, maybe more, we'll see. But first of all, I wanted to discuss the recent um, viral chant by the band Bob, or the band leader of the band Bob Vylan, uh, which was "Death, Death to the IDF," which caused quite a furor. But a lot of people heard about it, and most people either didn't take it as calling for the death of individual soldiers in the Israeli military, the Israeli Defense Forces, or Israeli occupation or offense forces, as uh, they are more accurately called often. So I wanted to just see what you guys thought and tell you what I think about um, the wisdom or efficacy of um, engaging in such a chant. And for that purpose, I have created a um, X spaces thingy. It's there. Oh, and I see Jordan there on the space. So if you want to if you want to talk, please feel free to check out the space. And the other thing I wanted to do, similarly, sort of a judgment issue. That's there are facts on which we could base our judgment, but certainly it's a matter of opinion. What do people think about um, the significance, in whatever way comes to mind, of Zoran Mamdani's uh, victory in the Democratic Party primary and the intense backlash, largely from Democrats, Republicans too, but largely from Democrats, um, about Mandami's win, and just the incredible racism, um, if we can use that term, for bigotry against Muslims. I don't know if I like the term Islamophobia. Race is a social construction anyway. It's not a real thing. And so, just as the Nazis were racist against Jews, uh, so to speak, and during the Nazi Holocaust and before and after, um, today there's racism, or bigotry, if you prefer, against Muslims these days. And, of course, it's very tied to support for Israel and its ethnic cleansing and genocide. So, anyway, well, let's start with Bob Vylan's chant, first of all. And let me just see if I can play it here. Where is it? I thought I had a tab for it. Uh, okay, let me search my history. Sorry, I thought for sure I had a tab where I. Oh, it's under Death to the IDF. That's it. Uh, I thought I had it saved. All right, let's just search for it on X. All right, we'll just do this one. I don't know why I can't find it. There we go, finally.
Talking about the bombing of hospitals, we hate that. If you're talking about innocent civilians and children getting sniped in the head, we hate that. But we are not generally hateful people, but we do hate war and we do hate injustice. And I think a lot of people out there hate it too. So if you got a flag, fly your flag high. If you got a keffiyeh, fly your keffiyeh nice and high. We will continue to fly that beautiful Palestinian flag. And nobody anywhere in the world will tell us that we are not allowed to. And they will not allow anybody to tell us that we are hateful people for flying that flag. We are a loving people, just like the people of Palestine are a loving people. Free, 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 free.
Okay. All right, I can't find it, but I mean, you know what he said. Okay, I was gonna check and see if anybody wanted to talk, but I don't see anybody in the X space. Um, so I'll just say what I think, and hopefully you guys will chime in. Um, so basically, at the Glastonbury Festival, a music festival in the UK. I'm not sure exactly where Glastonbury is, somewhere in England. Uh, the rapper, I forget his real name, but he goes by the stage name of Bob Vylan, and the rap band is named Bob Vylan. And so, he is well known, I guess, for being pro-Palestinian, outspoken about Israel's genocide, and um, yeah, that's the sort of crowd he attracts. Um, and he sort of led the crowd in chants about the Palestinian situation, made various allusions to it in the first few seconds of his performance. And then he said, well, how about this chant? Death, death to the IDF, death, death to the IDF, and so on. And, a huge response from, people chanting along with him in this giant crowd, thousands and thousands of people uh, there at this outdoor festival. Um, and so this evokes just enormous outrage among people who mostly the pro-Israel crowd, but also even people who are pro-Palestinian. Some people were a little weirded out about it. Were like, "Oh, this is really gonna, it's too inflammatory. It's gonna hurt the cause, etc." Um, so what I thought about it was, well, first of all, uh, chanting death to an institution doesn't necessarily mean that you want the people in it to die. So death to the IDF, just like say death to the Democratic Party, death to the whatever, uh, doesn't mean that you want to go around killing people necessarily. But it could be taken that way. Okay, I get that. So that's why a lot of people were kind of pissed off about it. But uh, even if he had meant for it to um, be a chant calling for death to individual soldiers. I mean, first of all, Palestinians have the right to resist using armed force, the right to resist Israel's military occupation, ethnic cleansing, and genocide. Obviously, they have the right to resist violently if they feel that that's the most appropriate or only means available to them to do so. Um, Hey guys, join the Twitter space if you can, so we can have a little discussion. Let me share the link in the chat here. There it is. So, yeah, hopefully people will chime in. But um, so first of all, there's that. Palestinians have the right to kill people who are trying to kill them, right? For one thing, and secondly, uh, well, what happened after World War II ended? Uh, Ultimately there were war crimes tribunals, and many Nazi war criminals were executed. Some of them got away. Some of them were spirited out of Europe by uh, the CIA and other nefarious actors. Went and lived in South America. Some came to the United States. Some were kind of repurposed as uh, agents uh, tasked to try and undermine uh, communists or radical movements in Europe. And some, just stayed in the German government. I guess uh, one of the founder of, or excuse me, the first head of NATO was a fascist. I don't think he was a Nazi, but I think he was a Portuguese fascist, maybe. But I mean, you know, uh, in fact, Nazism didn't die, but there were quite a few war criminals executed. How many people shed tears for them when they uh, you know, were executed? Probably not many. So um, I think the same will be true if, in fact, members of the IDF or Benjamin Netanyahu or whoever is tried and found guilty, convicted of war crimes. They will, you know, uh, experience death. Um, so that's what I think. But just a few reactions from other people who are pro-Palestinian. Carlos Martinez, who is a Marxist writer and activist, written a couple of books or edited a couple of books on China, wrote a book on the collapse of the Soviet Union, what he thought about that. Anyway, what he said was, death to the IDF is a slogan promoting peace, just as death to the Wehrmacht, the German army, would have been 80 years ago. In broad political terms, it means dismantling an army of occupation, which is literally perpetrating genocide and ethnic cleansing as we speak. taken it at its most literal, and it simply reflects an unfortunate reality in which, given Israel's consistent refusal to engage in meaningful negotiations and its apparent commitment to, quote, completing the job, unquote, via mass murder and population transfer, the most realistic path to peace in Gaza is via successful attacks on the occupying army. So, of course, we saw recently the most successful attack on the Israeli genocidaires carried out by Iran, which has, and of course, Israel attacked them first, and they responded, and they uh, you know, have very powerful missile capabilities, which inflicted a huge amount of damage on Israel. Um, and that probably is what it's gonna take. Israel's not gonna just say, "Oh, we see the light. We agree to peace." They're going to have to be forced into it. Using violence, the only language they seem to understand. Um, so So that's what a literal reading of the slogan would suggest. But you know, it's not calling for any individual's death. Uh, okay, what did Bob Vylan say in the aftermath? He issued this clarifying statement. Um, Today, a good many people would have you believe a punk band is the number one threat to world peace. Last week, it was a Palestine pressure group. The week before that, it was another band. We are not for the death of Jews, Arabs, or any other race or group of people. We're for the dismantling of a violent military machine. So that's literally what he means by death to the IDF. A machine whose own soldiers were told to use unnecessary lethal force against innocent civilians waiting for aid. If you're unfamiliar with that uh, event, uh, soldiers in the IDF who were interviewed said that they had been given orders to shoot at uh, unarmed civilians there at the aid stations. Um, A machine whose own soldiers were told to use unnecessary lethal force against innocent civilians waiting for aid, a machine that has destroyed much of Gaza. We, like those in the spotlight before us, are not the story. We are a distraction from the story, and whatever sanctions we receive will be a distraction. The government doesn't want us to ask why they remain silent in the face of this atrocity, to ask why aren't they doing more to stop the killing, to feed the starving. The more they talk about Bob Vylan, the less that they spend answering for their criminal inaction. We are being targeted for speaking up. We are not the first, we will not be the last. And if you care for the sanctity of human life and freedom of speech, we urge you to speak up too. Free Palestine. And a lot of people have pointed out just the sheer hypocrisy of the hypocrisy of uh, losing your shit over um, a pro-Palestine activist chanting "Death to the IDF," um, and the crowd chanting it as well, or a lot of the crowd, um, while meanwhile saying nothing about the fact that Israelis have been calling for death to Arabs, death to Palestinians, death to Muslims, etc., for years and years and years. And of course, um, it wasn't just talk. It was a steady stream of killing Palestinians, displacing them from their land, destroying their homes, etc. over the course of nearly 80 years, with the violence against them reaching genocidal levels on at least two occasions. When Israel was first imposed on Palestine by a absurd UN decision back in the late 1940s, and of course, starting after October 7th, 2023, which a lot of pro-Israel people claim was the start of the quote-unquote war. But in fact, if you look at news headlines going back through out 2023, you'll see over and over again. Israel kills X number of Palestinians in Gaza or the West Bank, and of course, that's one other thing that isn't mentioned is that the uh, uprising of Palestinians in Gaza against Israel's military siege that it had imposed on Gaza ever since 2007, where wouldn't let anybody leave without permission, wouldn't let anybody come in without permission, and wouldn't let goods uh, leave or enter um, Gaza without permission, and put strict limits on uh, food and allow construction materials in, et cetera, et cetera. So they were slowly economically strangling Gaza, making it one of the poorest places on earth. And of course, um, under international law, people have the right to resist, including through armed uprisings. Uh, any sort of military occupation um, or state of siege, which is considered a military occupation under international law. There's a right to fight against that. And so that's what October 7th was an attempt to break the siege or set in motion a process that could ultimately lead to Israel ending its strangulation of Gaza and ultimately to Palestinian liberation. So, in any case, it's just astounding the hypocrisy of um, those who are condemning Bob Vylan for chanting death to the IDF, but have never condemned um, Israelis saying similar things about Palestinians and just you know brutally racist stuff for decades, and of course actually causing death to Arabs. Here's another little kid saying death to the Arabs in Israel. The second Nakba is coming soon. And they know they've already committed genocide.
شو بيربيت المدينة لا لا הבית שלנו. פהם עליי, בית שלנו.
Charming, aren't they? So well, I was thinking there'd be some controversy over this, but I guess since nobody's talking, everybody agrees with me. I don't know. What do you think? Either post in the chat or and let me know you want to speak on the X space. Yeah, I mean, my feeling is that the impact of this chant going viral is just going to be that more people are going to be talking about the issue of Israel's genocide in Palestine. People are waking up. People are becoming more and more aware. And if you look at polls of people here in the United States, where I am, it's there's a bigger and bigger gap between at least uh, Democratic or liberal or leftist voters or Americans and the Democratic Party, which is about as pro-Israel, pro-genocide, etc., as the Republican Party, and the voters are not with them anymore. In fact, polls have suggested that the biggest contributor to Kamala Harris's loss in the election to Donald Trump was her refusal to distance herself in any way whatsoever from Joe Biden, the Biden administration's full complicity in Israel's genocide. Obviously, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's claim that Kamala Harris was working tirelessly for a ceasefire was a lie. There was never any real effort by the Biden administration to bring about a genuine ceasefire. They just kept sending more and more weapons. So even if they did talk about a ceasefire, which I don't recall them really talking about it very much at all, they never stopped sending them weapons. Now, of course, Trump and his staff did actually negotiate a ceasefire, right as he was coming into office. So there was a ceasefire deal implemented by the incoming Trump administration, which Israel promptly broke. If I recall correctly, they broke it the same day, but it was never it was never something that the Trump administration was seemed to be planning on holding Israel to. They didn't really object when Israel just completely breached it. So in any case, all right, shall we move on? Because it seems like nobody said anything, so I guess y'all all agree with me that even something as inflammatory as the chant "Death to the IDF" um, is just is really kind of a conversation starter. It gets people talking, um, and you can say, well, we don't have to mean we're going to go kill Israelis or something. Um, it certainly doesn't mean as a lot of the pro-Israel crowd claims, uh, death to Jews or something like that, because for one thing, far from everybody in the IDF is Jewish. The um, Israeli government really makes a big deal of, really plays up and advertises the fact that there are Muslims in the IDF. It shows them praying and stuff like that. They're Israeli citizens um, who largely are Jewish, but not all of them. And of course, um, elsewhere in the world, most of Israel's supporters are not Jewish. The vast majority of them are not Jewish. And many Jews in the West, or wherever they are, most of the Jews outside of Israel are in the United States. Many of them are, opposed to Israel's genocide and apartheid and so forth. They do not support the state of Israel. And until recently, that was a small minority of the Jewish diaspora, but that's been changing quite a bit. So, if I recall correctly, polls are now showing that young Jews in the United States are as or more opposed to the Israeli government and opposed to its genocide than are supportive of the Israeli government and deny or perhaps support its genocide. So that brings us to the other topic I wanted to get into tonight, the Democratic primary for mayor in New York City. So in that primary, Zoran Mamdani was running against Andrew Cuomo, former governor of New York, who had quite a scandal-plagued tenure as governor, where he was accused by, I think it was something like a dozen women of sexually harassing them, and he also was criticized for corruption and for his COVID policy, where, for instance, he sorry, there's a fly buzzing around in here. I can't do anything about it. He sent COVID patients into nursing homes in New York City for some reason, resulting in massive outbreaks in nursing homes in New York City and or elsewhere in New York, and large loss of life. We all saw the refrigerator trucks in the streets of Manhattan, full of bodies because they didn't have room in the morgues. So even though some people make a big deal out of the Democrats supposedly being much better in their response to the pandemic than the Republicans, basically everywhere in the United States, not nearly enough was done to prevent the spread of COVID. And in fact, in the early months, states with Democratic governors, because they tend to be more urban, had higher rates of COVID than states, deaths from COVID and cases of COVID, than states with Republican governors. And that eventually flipped. But in any case, um, capitalist societies like the wealthy capitalist societies like the U.S. and European countries had by far the worst outcomes with COVID. New York was a prime example of that, thanks to the misleadership of Andrew Cuomo. But anyway, that's off topic. Sorry. So Cuomo and a guy named Brad Lander, and then a bunch of other candidates whose names I don't recall, who hardly got any votes. But when Mamdani entered the race, he had something like 1% public approval. And nobody really knew much about him. He was a New York state assemblyman. And New York State legislator, and he was able to gather together a massive army of volunteers, tens of thousands. I think it was something like 50,000 volunteers. Canvassed New York City, and he's very charismatic, young, good-looking guy who made a lot of popular policy proposals, such as proposing rent control, a $30 minimum wage, free busing service, and what was the other thing? Anyway, so very progressive policy proposals. He calls himself a socialist, but then when pressed on it, he says, "Oh no, I'm not a communist. I'm a quote unquote democratic socialist." What Bernie Sanders said. So okay, there's still nobody in the X space. It'd be nice to hear from people, at least about this topic. So, links in the chat if you want to check it out. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about Mr. Mamdani's run in New York City. Oh, I remember what else it was he proposed. He proposed a pilot program of city-owned grocery stores to try and address the problem of food deserts, where people don't live anywhere near a normal grocery store. They just have convenience stores and fast food restaurants and so on in their neighborhoods. Not too far away from me, about an hour away, is Indianapolis, where my son lives, and there are food deserts there on the southeast side of town. You can drive for a mile or two and not see a grocery store in any direction. So anyway, Mamdani proposed to try and do something about that with city-owned grocery stores, and set off just this firestorm of criticism. His relatively mild reformist policy proposals. Is he really a socialist? He's a social democrat. He's basically kind of a Bernie Sanders liberal, or quote unquote democratic socialist, except he's not as bad as Bernie Sanders on foreign policy. Not that foreign policy has anything to do with being a mayor, but in any case, that became an issue in the New York mayoral primary. But who is he? Well, shoot, where's my? Uh, uh, well, for one thing, he's friends with both AOC and Bernie Sanders, and praised them profusely. So he says of, excuse me, he says of AOC here, Alexandria Ocasio Cortez is a once in a generation leader who has led the fight for working people in Congress. Um, kind of a absurd claim to make. In 2018, she shocked the world and transformed our politics. How exactly did she do that? Um, so anyway, you know, uh, she was kind enough to endorse him shortly before the primary took place, like 2 weeks beforehand. And so, uh, whether this statement here is sincere, that he really thinks she shocked the world and transformed our politics, or he's just saying that as kind of a thank you for her endorsement, I'm not sure. But in any case, um, as Fiorella um, Isabel Mallorca points out, AOC voted for the Iron Dome, voted for the Ukraine war, has pretty much every Democrat in Congress, wanted to censor people with different opinions, use children in cages for PR, and is among the biggest traitors to any, quote, progressive movement. Your guy, Mamdani, uh, praises her because he'll be exactly the same. Uh, well, he's not going to vote for the Iron Dome or the Ukraine war. He's a mayor. So, um, will he uh, do what's needed to build the movement that will push his proposed reforms through? Hard to know. Um, he may not, but you know, one distinguishing feature between him and Bernie Sanders and AOC is that he's very clear about the issue of Palestine. Uh, I forgot to plug my computer in, so let me do that here before it dies on me. Uh, Other thoughts on Mamdani. I keep screwing up his name. Uh, Hazaldin, the um, chairman of the American Communist Party. had this to say about him. Um, the only base thing about Zoran is all the rightist and Zionist meltdowns over him and the enemies he made. If he truly intends on taking on the Zionist lobby, the real estate speculators and landlords, they will not make it easy for him. He will face immense pressure by the DNC and the hegemony to sell out even before the November election. If he wants to resist this, Zoran needs to go full jihad, so to speak, on the DNC and Republicans. No more smiling salesmen. Draw a line between Zionist sellouts and independent Americans. He needs to create a militant mass base of supporters. He needs to expose that it is war and call upon everyone to take a side, show where the line is. War is the father of all things. If Zoran fights, I will support him. I support whoever wages war on the system. Notice that I am giving constructive advice. I am not purity testing anyone or being unreasonably negative. Only by waging war can he polarize politics in ways that help build a mass base. He is in the spotlight now. Use it. Do not diffuse, do not smile and say, don't worry, I'm harmless. He must become much more aggressive now against Democrats just as much as Trump. Barney the dinosaur will never push politics forward. Politics is war and nothing else. You know, I mean, you could say that sort of you know, inefficacious niceness of Barney the dinosaur characterizes you know, most of so-called progressives in establishment political parties. So think of Jeremy Corbyn in the UK. On paper, he has great politics. Ran for prime minister a few years ago. It looked like he was going to win. He was the leader of the Labour Party. He was extremely popular, but then a smear campaign against him started, and against other the few other leftist members of the Labour Party, where they claimed that they were anti-Semitic because they were critical of Israel. That old conflation. And back then there wasn't, in 2019, there wasn't nearly as much public resistance to that, or savviness about the false and frankly anti-Semitic nature of conflating being against Israel and its brutal exploitation and occupation of Palestinians and being anti-Jewish. Corbyn didn't really fight back very hard against that. And of course, here in the United States, the quintessential example of Barney the dinosaur politics is Bernie Sanders. He couldn't bring himself ever to criticize my good friend Joe Biden. And that lost him the election. He never took the gloves off. That among other things, lost him an election that he could have won in 2020. And similarly in 2016, although that was perhaps more rigged against him than 2020 was. Part of Zoran's unconscious appeal, Haas goes on to say, is that people associate Islam with militancy and strength. All embracing Obama politics cannot accelerate political contradictions. Rather, it dilutes them. Political contradictions are the motor of all political change. Zoran has entered the national spotlight in spite of his Obama bullshit. He won because Zionists waged war on him and people chose Intifada. This is the main strength, not the out-of-touch liberal Democratic BS. New York City went 30% for Trump in 2024. If the DNC is against him, it will not be easy for him. He won primarily among educated college voters and Asians, not the majority of the working class. He should lean heavy on the anti-Zionist populism, not turbo libtardism. Policies do not drive politics. Warfare does. Who holds the power? Who fights the power? This is the essence of politics. To be political is not to sell policies, but to take a stance on the system of power, fight against it, or shill for it. Ignore this advice at your own peril. So is Zoran Mamdani Barney the dinosaur type politician. Um, I don't know. We'll see. But what's really striking about this this mayoral race is that it's basically a referendum on Israel and Palestine. That was a big issue in the campaign for mayor of New York. Not because of Mamdani. He wanted to talk about trying to implement policies to help working people in New York, the most expensive city in terms of the cost of living, rent and food and everything else in the entire country. That was the theme of his campaign. I want to make New York more affordable. But pretty much all of his opponents in the mayoral primary, the Democratic Party primary, as well as the media and the rest of the Democratic Party establishments, made sure that, in fact, the race was not about uh, how to govern New York, but about you know, Israel and Palestine. Um, let's see if I can find the uh, clip from the mayoral debate where it was all about Israel, even though that has nothing to do with the city of New York. Which, by the way, New York has the uh, largest Jewish population of any place in the world outside of Israel. There are something like 7 million Jews in Israel and about the same number outside of it. And about 1 million of those diaspora Jews outside of Israel live in New York City. So it's got by far the largest Jewish population of any city in the world other than Tel Aviv or Jerusalem in Israel. So here we go. Here we go. Oh, okay. No, that's not the debate. Never mind. I guess I don't have it saved. Thought I did. But this is emblematic of how the mayoral race went. Yeah, amazing. Okay, so I can't find the clip from the mayoral race from the mayoral debate. But basically, what happened was that the candidates were all asked where they would take a trip as mayor of New York, and so all of them, except for Mamdani, one by one, they said, "Oh, the first place I'm going to go when I'm uh, elected mayor of New York is Israel." And Mamdani's like, Well, that's a really strange question to ask in the uh, Democratic primary debate for mayor of New York. I'm not going anywhere in particular. I am going to do my job governing the city of New York. That's what this job is supposed to be about. Why are you asking me about whether I would go to Israel or not? Um, this fly is really annoying. Sorry. So, yeah, Mamdani. If I haven't mentioned this before, of course, he's Muslim, um, and he's an immigrant. Uh, he was born in Uganda. His parents are, originally from India, so he's of Indian descent. He's an Indian American. Just got citizenship here in 2018. And the fact that he's Muslim, and also the fact that he took a pretty solid stance on the Israel-Palestine issue. Came right out and said, "Yeah, Israel's committing a genocide. They need to stop. We need to stop supporting them, etc." But again, uh, I'm running for mayor of New York. I'm just saying this because people are asking me about it. Um, and the combination of him being Muslim and uh, his support for the Palestinian cause just brought out a massive, massive smear campaign against him. Um, he was accused by a number of people, such as Democratic Congressman Eric Swalwell, of saying bad things about Jews. Uh, of course, Eric Swalwell doesn't say what Mamdani has supposedly said about the Jewish people. He hasn't said anything about the Jewish people, other than like nice things or neutral things. Um, but there were all kinds of reactions of this sort to him, or allegations. Um, Perhaps the most unhinged, in addition to the far right reactions, but among Democrats, the most unhinged reaction was from Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, however you pronounce her name. Um, Gillibrand accused Zoran Mandani of advocating for the slaughter of Jews. This is vile racist slander. This person says she should be now denounced across the board and voted out. Okay, let's listen to some of what uh, Kirsten Gillibrand has to say in response to you know a question from a listener to a talk show that Gillibrand was being interviewed on, the Brian Lehrer show. Um, okay, here we go. Okay, so it's not true that he proposed anything specifically about Jewish organizations, policy-wise. I didn't follow the race that closely, but I guess there was a general policy proposal from him to try and not just give money away to organizations for you know um, purposes that didn't really benefit the public, but it wasn't targeted at Jewish organizations. Okay, so this guy goes on to say, asking Kirsten Gillibrand questions. Okay, guys. So, as you are probably aware, intifada is an Arabic word that simply means, uprising. That's all it means. It doesn't necessarily mean, violence, let alone violence directed against any specific group. So, for instance, in the I believe it was the late 1980s. There was a an overwhelmingly nonviolent resistance movement in Palestine against Israeli apartheid. That was called the Intifada, and then since there was a second one a few years later, it became known as the first Intifada. Um, in history books written in Arabic, um, that talk about uh, Jewish resistance to the Nazis. For instance, the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising, where some Jews in the ghetto of Warsaw, Poland, where they were confined by the Nazis, were able to procure arms and staged a violent uprising against the Nazis. Well, in Arabic, what that was called was the Warsaw, whatever the Arabic word for ghetto is, Intifada, because Intifada is the Arabic word for uprising. Um, so, you know, it certainly didn't mean that you know Jews in Warsaw were targeting Aryans or trying to genocide non-Jewish Germans or something like that. They were just resisting being occupied and brutalized. And the same is true, of course, with the Palestinians. And again, this constant conflation by people like Kirsten Gillibrand of Israelis with Jews or Zionists with Jews. Most Zionists are outside of Israel, or most Zionists in general, are Christian. You're not Jewish because there's only 15 million Jews in the whole world. And many Jews outside of Israel are opposed to the Israeli government. They'd like to, just as many of the rest of us who are not Jewish would like to see. They would like to see the Jewish ethno-state of Israel dismantled and replaced with a democracy. One person, one vote. Everybody has equal rights. You know, nothing against Jews, just against you know, apartheid and ethnic cleansing and, of course, genocide. Anyway, back to Ms. Gillibrand's absurd remarks. So the host of the show is trying his best to talk common sense here against Kirsten Gillibrand's, as a poster says, vile racist slander against Mamdani. Um, okay, so she talks to him, and he basically said what she wanted to hear, and I assume he meant it. She obviously didn't, and she lied and made all these claims about him advocating, you know, killing Jews or something like that. Um, okay. Anyway, so that's Kirsten Gillibrand, New York's great senator. So somebody else's comment was, "This is the most racist, absurd, unhinged thing a Democratic senator not named Fetterman has said in a long time." Um, so and later on, she commented about where I don't understand why I'm not able to share. Oh, I'm not sharing my screen for some reason. Later on in the conversation, sorry, I didn't want to play a 6-minute clip, so I didn't share that part of what she said with you, because I didn't know exactly where it was. But later on in her remarks, she said, in reference to phrases, words like intifada, which we already mentioned, or the phrase "from the river to the sea," Palestine will be free. They always leave that last part off of it. The Zionists do, because their intent is to smear people who use the phrase, who are just, um, calling for liberation of Palestine. Um, so, so the host of the show said basically, well, he would say intifada simply means uprising. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. It means exactly what it says, no hidden meaning. Um, but and various other phrases. She says, I would simply say that is not how the words are received. By whom, Kirsten? Uh, by bigots like yourself? Yeah, that's who. And it doesn't matter what meaning you have in your brain, it is not how the word is received. And when you use a word like intifada to many Jewish Americans and Jewish New Yorkers, that means you are permissive for violence against Jews. It is a serious word. And I would be very specific in these words, and I would say that you may not use them again if you expect to represent everyone ever again because they are received as hateful and divisive and harmful. It's why Jewish students have felt that their schools did not have their backs and cared about them where they're learning, because the people doing these protests use words that have meanings that are far more violent and horrific than they may have intended. But when you hear things like intifada, when you hear things like jihad, which means struggle in Arabic, when you hear from the river to the sea, it is received as slaughter the Jews and destroy Israel, period. It is how it is received. Blah, blah, blah. So, Ryan Grimm and Jeremy Scahill's website, Dropsite News, their comment was Senator Kirsten Gillibrand insists that pro-Palestinian protesters should not use words like intifada or from the river to the sea, not because of what those words mean or how they're intended, but because of how some supporters of Israel, or quote-unquote Jewish Americans, who, of course, Kirsten Gillibrand conflates with supporters of Israel, choose to interpret them. Gillibrand makes clear she believes that pro-Palestinian voices must be policed. If certain special listeners, Zionist Jews or Zionists in general, feel offended, even if that offense is rooted in political bias, deliberate misinterpretation, or support for Israeli state violence. The meaning of the word, she says, is irrelevant. Intent doesn't matter. Only the reaction of one group, Zionists, counts. She ends by claiming, with no hint of irony, because as a leader you have to protect everyone, period. Okay, so, and there were just so many smears thrown at Mamdani. Just after he won the race, some bigot hacked into a database of college applications and found his college application to Columbia, where Zoran's dad is a professor. So he applied to Columbia. He didn't get in, even though his dad's a professor at Columbia. But on his application, he puts, in response to questions about his race or ethnicity, he identified himself as Asian and as African American. And they asked for elaboration if you felt that the boxes that you were given to check, the standard ones that you see on census forms, they were also on this college application. So he checked the box that said Black or African American, as well as the box that said Asian, since his ancestry is Indian. And wrote in Ugandan, indicating his birthplace, and people just blasted him for supposedly pretending to be African American, and trying to gain some sort of advantage admissions wise that way. Well, if you're from Africa, if that's where you were born, and you come to the United States and become a resident of ultimately a citizen here in the United States, I mean, you literally are African American, right? Yeah. And Margaret Kimberly from Black Agenda Report, who I like her a lot. I agree with her on most everything, but she is a Black. She said African American means Black descendants of people enslaved in this country, but I'm more concerned about the New York Times cutting a deal with a racist hacker who also accessed others' personal information, all to smear Mamdani. Fuck the New York Times. But I mean, does African American literally mean Black descendants of people enslaved in this country? Well, first of all, there are a lot of people who are deemed black and identify as black, who you know are descended from darker skinned residents of Africa who have never been enslaved. So, for example, Barack Obama was universally considered to be black or African American, whatever you want to call it, despite the fact that his African ancestry uh, was, his dad uh, was born in Kenya and lived in Jamaica and then later the United States. You know, uh, Nobody in Barack Obama's family that I know of was ever enslaved. No, none of his ancestors were enslaved. So does that mean he's not black? Does that mean he's not African American? Well, no. Um, and in any case, it's pretty clear that Mamdani wasn't trying to pull the wool over anybody's eyes by filling out a college application that way when he was 17. He's now 33. He was just trying to do the best he could to fill out a college application that you know um, didn't really give him the opportunity to explain fully who he was. So that's one smear. Um, that's Eric Adams, the current mayor of New York, who claimed that Mamdani has said things that were anti-Semitic. Um, and Adams doesn't have an answer for him as to what he said that's anti-Semitic. Okay, so he's claiming that, but he can't. I mean, he's just making that up. He clearly was surprised that someone actually questioned him about this. And in the mind of Zionists like him and others, criticizing Israel is anti-Semitic. They conflate the two. But nobody's ever been able to find any example of. Oh, I forgot to share the tab. I'm sorry. Nobody's ever given any example of him saying anything specific about Jews. That's just nonsense. Another fun smear that was leveled at Mamdani was the fact that his wife doesn't have the same last name as him. Um, so if your wife doesn't take your last name, you shouldn't even be allowed to own property, let alone run for office, says this person, uh, uh, linking to a New York Post article. It says, "Who is Rama Duwai, wife of New York City mayoral candidate Zohar Mamdani?" Mamdani. Um, you know, uh, as people pointed out in response to this line of attack on Mamdani, um, it's not customary in Islam when a couple gets married for the wife to take on the husband's last name. And in fact, it's not even typical in in most societies around the world. It's a very Western and in fact, English-speaking country custom. So you're talking about Canada, the U.S., the U.K. Not too much else. They don't. Wives don't change their last names to their husband's last name in France. They don't in most of the world. So this is just insane. Of course, the fact that he's an immigrant was another thing that's been thrown at him. Um, you know, um, mostly by Republicans. Democrats are a little less bigoted against immigrants than Republicans, but you know, um, they don't seem to have anything against Arnold Schwarzenegger, immigrant from Austria, having been governor of California, Republican governor of California. Uh, Nobody talks about um, all the members of Congress that were born outside of the United States. So Elon Omar, Ted Cruz, um, Michael Bennett, born in India, Ted Cruz, born in Canada, Tammy Duckworth, born in Thailand, I guess a military brat, Mazie Hirono from Hawaii, born in Japan. And the list goes on. Chris Van Hollen, born in Pakistan. So just absolute silliness. But most of it is just bigotry centered around the fact that he's Muslim. And in part also the fact that he's a self-proclaimed socialist, even though he really isn't a socialist. So how did Mamdani react to these smear attempts? Actually, let me play for you what Donald Trump said to and about him. Or maybe this is just response.
Assemblyman until just a few weeks ago, but his victory in the Democratic primary for mayor did deliver shockwaves in a party that is struggling to define its message and a path forward. This morning, Zohran Mamdani calling for a new generation of leaders after delivering a stunning upset in New York City's Democratic primary for mayor.
And I think that there is a need for a new generation of leadership.
The self-described Democratic socialist skyrocketed past former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo. His campaign laser focused on making New York more affordable, a strategy he tells me could be a blueprint for Democrats.
I think there's a question of how we return back to what made so many of us proud to be Democrats.
How do you do that?
And I think it's that focus on an economic agenda, on ensuring that people can do more than just struggle.
He campaigned on freezing rents, making buses free, and opening city-run supermarkets, telling voters he will pay for his agenda by raising taxes on wealthy and corporations. But that would certainly face major challenges getting approval in the state legislature. And this morning, he's also facing questions about his own experience at just 33 years old with only 5 years in the state assembly.
And the experience that I show in this moment is to be able to meet the crisis that New Yorkers are facing and deliver them a new kind of city, one that is unencumbered by the old ways.
In November, he'll face New York City Mayor Eric Adams.
He's a snake oil salesman. He will say and do anything to get elected.
Adams was indicted on corruption charges, which were later dismissed by the Trump administration. During our interview, the president going on the attack.
So President Trump just weighed in and called you a communist lunatic. What do you say to that?
You know, this is not the first time that President Trump is going to comment on myself.
The next mayor of New York City will have to work with the Trump administration. Are you willing to do that? Will you do that?
I will work with the Trump administration when it is to the benefit of New Yorkers. My approach will never be reflexive, whether in agreement or opposition, but if it comes at the expense of the New Yorkers that I'm running to serve, then no, I will not be working with the administration on harming the people that I look to represent.
So some Democrats are still trying to wrap their heads around his victory, embracing his enthusiasm, his energy, but maybe not backing his policies just yet. As for Andrew Cuomo, he is not out of the race just yet. He's now considering running as an independent in the general election. There'll be a Republican on the ballot as well, guys.
Not over yet. All right.
Okay, I thought that clip was going to elaborate on what exactly Donald Trump said about him, other than calling him a communist lunatic. Trump also threatened to have Mamdani arrested. I guess for being a Muslim, I don't know. Stripped of his citizenship, put in a detention camp, and deported. The President of the United States just threatened to have me arrested, stripped of my citizenship, put in a detention camp, and deported. Not because I have broken any law, but because I will refuse to let ICE terrorize our city. His statements don't just represent an attack on our democracy, but an attempt to send a message to every New Yorker who refuses to hide in the shadows. If you speak up, they will come for you. We will not accept this intimidation. That Trump included praise for Eric Adams, the Democratic mayor of New York, in his authoritarian threats is unsurprising, but highlights the urgency of bringing an end to this mayor's time in City Hall. At the very moment when MAGA Republicans are attempting to destroy the social safety net, kick millions of New Yorkers off of health care, and enrich their billionaire donors at the expense of working families, it is a scandal that Eric Adams echoes this president's division, distraction, and hate. Voters will resoundingly reject it in November. I thought, I don't know what you think, but I thought that was, a really good statement, and I think it shows, as do other things that he said, that he's not, a shrinking violet who will let himself be pushed around the way that Jeremy Corbyn did in his ill-fated attempt to run for prime minister in the UK, or as Bernie Sanders did, where, he really, especially in his second run for president in 2020, he couldn't bring himself to unflinchingly criticize the Democratic Party establishment. Whereas in his 2016 campaign, Sanders was willing to say, well, the people I'm running against in the Democratic primary, like Hillary Clinton, represent Wall Street, represent the billionaires. They don't represent ordinary Americans' interests, and that's not what this party should be about. But in 2020, Sanders' entire campaign pretty much was focused on how bad Donald Trump was, and he really pulled his punches in terms of criticizing his chief rival, Joe Biden, and didn't respond when he, effectively, at least when he was smeared as being someone who the Russians were trying to help win the election and so forth, which there was no evidence for, just not a very assertive person. So far, Mamdani doesn't strike me that way. He does try to be nice to everybody, and as somebody put it, has this sort of they said toxic positivity about his personality. But yeah, that's part of why he won. That and the fact that um, you his chief rival Andrew Cuomo was so corrupt. It, and the fact that even in New York, home to more Jews than any city except Tel Aviv or Jerusalem, um, most people you know reject Zionism. You don't support you know, Israel's horrific treatment of the Palestinians, and you are on his side on that very irrelevant to being mayor of New York issue. Um, yeah, no matter how insane it was, the New York mayoral race was a referendum on the Israel-Palestine issue, which the mayor of New York has no role in terms of formulating policy about. But on that referendum, Mamdani won. I should also mention one. He didn't really need it because he, you he won outright anyway. But I should mention that in the Democratic primary in New York City, uh, they have ranked choice voting. So um, Mamdani was. Here we go. In the first round of voting and ranked choice voting, um, Mamdani received 43.5%, so beat Cuomo, his closest rival, by 7%, as you can see there. And as I assume you're aware, the way ranked choice voting works is that in a multi-candidate, more than two candidate race, you rank your first choice, and if you have any people you would be okay with if your first choice didn't win, your second choice, your third choice, and so forth. You don't have to rank anybody except your first choice, but in any case, you can rank as many as you want. And so, in each round of voting, they first look at the uh, number one rankings. So that's what these percentages that you see here on the screen are, is what percentage of voters' number one rankings, Mamdani, Cuomo, Lander, etc., got. And so if nobody reaches 50% in that first round, then it goes to the second round, where voters' second choices are taken into account. And then the third round, they take into account voters' third choices and so forth until there's a candidate who wins 50%. Okay, that doesn't give the final results, but the final result was that Mamdani got, it was either 56 or 58% versus 42 for 56 to 44, I believe, was how it came out once they had eliminated all the candidates through counting first, second, and third rankings. It was on the third round that they were able to eliminate all the candidates and just make it a two-way race between Mamdani and Cuomo, and Mamdani won handily by 12%. And mainly Mamdani won among oh, that's what I just showed you. Never mind. Won among younger voters. And he won an awful lot of young Jewish votes. Many New York Jewish voters rejected claims of Mamdani anti-Semitism. Oh, I forgot to mention Mamdani, like AOC, is a member of the DSA, Democratic Socialists of America, which is, I guess it's technically the largest so-called socialist group in the United States, but, like the CPUSA, they basically just support Democrats. They don't try to push for a third party or anything. So anyway, they say in this article published in the People's World, is that Workers' World Party? I think that's who it is. His win represents not just a triumph for progressive politics, but a clear rejection of the smear campaign that sought to weaponize anti-Semitism and Islamophobia against him. From the beginning, establishment Democrats and Republicans alike painted Mamdani as a threat to New York's large Jewish population. They relied on a toxic, dual-headed narrative that a Muslim critic of Israeli policy must be anti-Semitic, and that American Jews are required to have blind loyalty to Zionism and the Israeli government. But many Jews in New York saw through the fear-mongering. In fact, polls showed Mamdani was the second most popular candidate among Jewish voters citywide, of all ages, not just young Jewish voters. Excuse me, it's getting hot in here. I'm going to turn the AC on. The corporate media, however, preferred to amplify the manufactured panic rather than report the truth. Central to the attacks was Mamdani's outspoken criticism of Israel's genocidal war on the Palestinian people. His opponents cynically seized on his past use of the phrase globalize the intifada, stripping of context to suggest he endorsed violence against Jews. Now, I should mention he didn't advocate for globalize the intifada. He just said, that phrase isn't offensive. It just means, uprising or shaking off in Arabic, etc. Mamdani's position on Israel is not only grounded in international human rights law, it is shared by a wide range of Jewish voices, including Jewish Voice for Peace, If Not Now, etc., which have organized extremely large demonstrations in New York City of hundreds of thousands of people, or thousands of people, all of them Jewish. They protested in front of Chuck Schumer's house, for example. Hundreds of people, all Jewish, protested Schumer's support for Israel. And the third place candidate, Brad Lander, who got 12%, and Mamdani cross-endorsed each other. So, in other words, they said, okay, all right, I know you're going to rank me first because I'm your preferred candidate, but please rank, Lander or Mamdani, whichever was the other guy, second. And so certainly that, helped Mamdani widen his lead in the second and third rounds of voting, because lots and lots of Lander voters ranked Mamdani number two, and Lander got 12%. So he picked up 10 or 12% once Lander was knocked out of the race by the subsequent round of, ranked choice voting. So, and there was one other article I wanted to show you. Oh, here we go. Why is the New York Times so afraid of Zoran Mamdani? The liberal establishment's war on the New York City mayoral candidate reflects panic over a growing left challenge to Zionist orthodoxy and the mainstream of Palestine solidarity in the race for mayor of New York. Imagine that. A specter is haunting New York. The specter of Zoran Mamdani. This is from Middle East Eye, by the way. The Democratic nominee for New York City mayor. All the powers of predatory capitalism, militarized fascism, and genocidal Zionism have entered into a holy alliance to exorcise this specter of a Muslim supporter of Palestine, running for mayor of New York. The New York Times continues to lead the charge against Mamdani, joined early on by the old guard of the Democratic Party. Former President Bill Clinton endorsed fellow philanderer and disgraced ex-governor Andrew Cuomo in a failed attempt to block the young Democratic Socialist nomination. The incurably racist President Donald Trump huffs and puffs from the sidelines as neocons, MAGA Republicans, and reactionary liberals such as New York Congressman Hakeem Jeffries join forces with morally bankrupt establishment Democrats. The usual Islamophobic suspects rush in, racist thugs in high heels and business suits galore. It is a freak show. Full disclosure, the article, this author of this article is Hamid Dabashi. Not sure how you say his name. I've known Zoran Mamdani since he was a young boy, he says. He is the son of two dear friends, my Columbia University colleague, Mahmoud Mamdani. So this guy's a professor at Columbia as well. And his mother, the towering Indian filmmaker Mira Nair. Not sure how you say that either. Whom I have known even longer. Both my younger children campaigned for Mamdani. My children and daughter-in-law voted for him, as did I. Like millions of other New Yorkers, we are all rooting for Mamdani. We hope he will become our next mayor and radically transform the obscene spectacle of corrupt politicians like Eric Adams and Cuomo. Well, we'll see. Obviously, merely him being elected mayor by itself won't change anything. There has to be a social movement behind him. And so, the most successful, in my opinion, leftist politician in the United States in recent times has been Kshama Sawant, who served for several years as a city council member in Seattle and was able to win a whole slew of reforms, including, for instance, the highest minimum wage in the United States. I think it's $30 an hour, which is what Mamdani is advocating as well. But the way she was able to do that was to, sorry, neighbors firing up his big, loud truck. Hope you can still hear me. She was able to get the labor movement and many other progressive constituents behind her to put pressure on the city to do things like raise taxes on Amazon and implement a living wage, a $30 minimum wage, and it's an open question whether he will do that. The fact that he not only ran as a Democrat, but talks up his political affinity with the likes of AOC and Bernie Sanders, who, of course, famously got a lot of popular support, but kind of abandoned the movements that were behind him and let them die. So we'll see if he goes in that direction or more of Sawant's direction. I'm not necessarily that hopeful that he will do the latter, but the fact that he was able to win in spite of this massive smear campaign against him in the most Jewish city in the United States, 1 million or so Jews, hundreds of thousands of Jewish voters, in a political climate where virtually the entire establishment, the entire political establishment almost in both the Democratic and Republican parties is fully behind Israel and Islamophobic as fuck, and he's Muslim, and yet he won the primary quite handily. That really speaks, I think, to a significant shift in the politics of people in this country, where I think if I recall correctly, polls like 8 or 10 years ago showed that even among Democrats, most voters were pro-Israel, not pro-Palestine, by something like a 15% margin. And now, among Democrats, it didn't only flip the other way, it flipped massively in the other direction, where the proportion of voters who are pro-Palestine versus pro-Israel is something like 40% more Democratic voters are pro-Palestine than pro-Israel. And these sorts of smear campaigns just aren't going to work. There's no guarantee, of course, that he'll win in the general election in the fall. Depends on how he campaigns. Depends on an awful lot of factors. But he, considering how handily he won the primary, he really has a great chance to win. And again, that's not to say that his victory will bring a sea change to New York politics. We'll see about that. But his victory really is a sign of the times. This a sign of a big change in the direction of politics in the United States, where the Israeli lobby can't simply count on being able to buy elections the way they have in the past. Especially if somebody is an effective campaigner, as Mamdani clearly is. The Israeli lobby is, the Zionist lobby is not going to be able to beat them just by throwing money at them. Maybe in a more conservative place than New York City. Don't get me wrong, but certainly, in a Democratic Party primary in any major city in the United States, and general elections too in cities where people tend to be more liberal than in rural areas or suburbs. We're gonna gradually over the years, I think, see Zionists getting weeded out of office. So whereas nowadays support for Israel is virtually unanimous in Congress, I don't think that's going to last. And Mamdani's victory is certainly a sign that is going to change. Okay, so that was kind of how I wanted to conclude. I haven't read this entire article to you, but I will put a link to it in the description because it's really good, despite the author's maybe unwarranted optimism about what Mamdani being in office would mean. Still, he makes a lot of great points about, the panic of the liberal establishment over Mamdani's victory. Okay. Well, again, I would really like in the future to make these videos more interactive, get some input from people who listen, and for whatever reason, y'all didn't want to talk this time, but in any case, I'm not sure how often I'm going to be able to do this. As you know, if you follow my channel, I haven't done that many videos the last few months. I've been doing this or that other thing, but I will try to do them more often. Maybe once a week, at least a couple a month, like I've done in the past. I'd like to do it more often than that, but things like work and other ventures take up a lot of my time. So, in any case, it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the fall as Mamdani runs in the general election, and hopefully remains assertive, and the entirety of the political establishment is going to continue smearing him and expressing all kinds of bigotry toward him. And one thing that I know I've alluded to it, but I haven't said it explicitly, is I think that the fact that so much overt anti-Muslim bigotry came out during and following the campaign, I think in a way that's a good thing. Not that, certainly not that anti-Muslim hatred is good. It's obviously not. But the fact that, for instance, Democrats like Kirsten Gillibrand have been exposed as bigots over the course of these last couple of months, and that will continue to be the case. I think that that's a positive thing. It will hopefully, in the long run, erode some of the rampant Islamophobia that exists in this country, where I think even though we still have a general problem in this country with a lot of prejudice against people of color, but I would argue that along with dark-skinned immigrants, Muslims of any sort are the primary targets of bigotry in this country right now. Really, in the West, I think you could make a good case that the scale of bigotry against Muslims is comparable to what we saw or not we. None of us were alive then, or almost none of us. But what our ancestors saw in the mid 20th century against Jews. It's really at that level, and of course, we've seen the genocide in Palestine, kind of paralleling the Nazi genocide against Jews. It's a stark illustration of just how bad it's gotten. But I really think the tide is turning, and I'm excited to see that happening. Okay, well, thank you for listening, and I will talk to you again soon.